Okie dokie. So it's the day after Yom Kippur, Tafshin Pei. We changed the year. Tafshin Pei, amazing. Yes, the Eshnat Bdut, right? We are studying Sefer Shmuel Aleph, the first book of Shmuel, chapter 14, verse 46. And we are just concluded a war, Saul and his son Yonatan versus 1446 against the Philistines. Yonatan instigated the war by sort of mistake, and then tried to save the situation, and ended up starting the actual battle. He's was able to overcome the Philistines. The whole battle was had a lot of questions and strange occurrences. Some criticism of Saul by no less his son Yonatan, who says that Saul required the people not to eat, to fast while doing the battle. He wanted him to annul that maybe, or not not hold the people back from being full force and being able to smite the Philistines better. And then there was a whole story that Yonatan did eat because he wasn't present when Saul managed to ask everybody not to eat. So he did eat, whether he knew or didn't know, the whole story. Then Saul really was ready to kill him for not following the direction of the commander-in-chief. And the people didn't let that happen, and they redeemed him. Redeemed him with money, redeemed him with honey, redeemed him with I don't know with what. It's not clear. So that's where we left off last time. In the meantime, while this whole situation is happening, the people who were starving are eating, and they're not eating properly, not slaughtering the animals properly, not shechting it properly. So there was a lot of time wasted overnight in order to get the people fed properly, in order to settle the matter with Yonatan. And by the time this whole thing finished, there was morning already, and the momentum was lost, and there was no point in Saul was asking the breastplates if he should continue to chase the Philistines overnight and finish them off, but the breastplate didn't answer because God was not really at this point so close and happy with Saul's actions. His judgment was already starting to show signs of not doing the right thing, and he actually had one strike against him when he was sacrificing thanks offering to God in the Gilgal before the time was up, before Shmuel was there to sort of direct that. So that's where we were. So 1446, Vayal Shaul ma'achei Plishtim uPlishtim alchu limkomam. So Shaul stopped the fight and went away, and Plishtim already got back to their home base. So it was the whole situation would be a little bit more difficult to attack their home base. When they were running around, it's much easier to hurt the troops or the people who are running around with their backs to you. When they're at home, they turn back and they fight sometimes to death, and it's more complicated. So the fight stopped. 6 months later, Goliath will revive this battle, and then, as we all know, That's when David started shining. We'll talk about it in a few chapters. ושאול לקד את המלוכה. What did he do, Saul? What did he do after the battle? He was consolidating his power around the nation of Israel, the entire kingdom. He was basically gathering control or asserting his control over the entire land of Israel. Al Yisrael vayilachem saviv b'chol oivav. And he took the opportunity to all of the enemies around us were trying to challenge the king. When you see a new king on a block, it's natural, I guess, for those for the king likes to challenge him, and so they took the opportunity. Skirmishes, battles here and there, nothing, no great wars, but trouble. It's a lot of headache. So he did fight against all of them, and was winning, was victorious one time after time. B'Moav u'Bnei Ammon, those are the two nations that are to the east of the Jordan River. U'B'Edom, a little lower towards Saudi Arabia. U'Malchei Tzova, former Syria, what used to be called Syria. U'B'Flishtim, which are the area of Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, in the east, in the west. And everywhere that he turned and someone was trying to hurt the Jews or was trying to be evil towards the Jews, he took care of them and get rid of them. Vayas Chayil vayach et Amalek vayatzel Israel miat shoseu. And then he was really, really victorious, and he started dealing with the nation of Amalek. In a few sentences, we are going to go do a little bit of a deep dive into Amalek. But Amalek, just as a cursory look right now, there were tribes that were known to be vicious and fierce, and they would ride from place to place in the desert, attacking towns that are adjacent to the desert, or places that are oases that are in the desert, and they were around the area of the northern Negev and middle of the Negev, a little down towards Egypt. On the west.
They attacked Israel on the way out of Egypt.
Right, but they didn't get quite close to Egypt. It was toward Egypt, more in the area of where Yamit used to be. Rafiach, Yamit, not that far, in. And we will see it's very critical to understand that it was not that far in. And there is actually a river called Nachal Shor, the river of Shor, that was their border. And Egypt is a whole bunch of tens, dozens of miles beyond it. So he had skirmishes with them too, because they also joined the party. And here we have a very interesting note, a very interesting comment. Vayatzel et Yisrael miyat shoseu. And he saved the Jews from all of those who attacked them. Meaning he did not have any other motive. And we will see soon that he should have maybe what kind of a motive he had, especially when in regards to Amalek. Should have had some other motives as well. But he was just reacting to those who are attacking us. He would fight back and win the war. All right, at this point, we have three sentences two sentences, actually three, that seems out of place because they are giving us the lineage of Shaul, of Saul. Typically, you would give the lineage either before the story or after the story. This is smack in the middle. It seems that we're just about to dive into a story that ended his legitimacy as a leader in the eyes of God when he fought Amalek but didn't listen to the exact directions. So before we are totally sort of dismissing him and getting bad impression of him. He is due the respect that he is due because he's the first king of Israel, and his household is due plenty of respect for that. So we have the Tanakh here, the Sefer Shmuel, the Navi is mentioning his entire family and extended family. Some of those characters are going to come back again and again later, and we will talk about them and see. Vayu bnei Shaul. So then he's counting the sons of Shaul. Yonatan v'Ishvi u'Malkishua. How many? Quickly? 3, right? Beautiful. That's a problem right there. Why is it a problem? Let me just read to you from Divrei Hayamim. Divrei Hayamim is mentioning also all of the lineage of all of the people that mentioned in the Tanakh prior to Divrei Hayamim, the Annals of the Jews. Annals of the Jews, Divrei Hayamim. Right? Chronicles, I'm sorry. So there is in the first book of Chronicles, it says, Vener holid et Kish. A gentleman by the name of Ner gave birth to Kish. Hold on. That's already also a problem. Let's pause right there and see. Let's go to the very beginning of the story of Saul in the book of Shmuel. Vaish mi ben Binyamin, there was a man from the town of Benjamin, right? Ushmo Kish ben Aviel. So the father of Kish was Aviel, right? And then Ben Saul, and then he had a son. His name was Saul. So the father of Kish was Aviel, and here we say in Divrei Hayamim, Vener olidet Kish. So the father of Kish is Ner or Aviel. All right.
Same guy, two names.
Exactly. Very common that the same guy would have 2 names. His name was really Aviel, and he was called Ner. Ner means candle, and he was called candle because he instituted, I think we mentioned it a while back, he instituted street lamps. He instituted the whole idea of having lights in the alleys, in the streets at night, so people are comfortable walking and not being afraid of the dark and what's in it. So he got the nickname of Ner. Now that's going to become a little more complicated because he also had a son called Ner. It's as if you have Ner and then you have Ner Junior. But so his real name was Aviel. His nickname maybe his nickname was Ner. And he also had a son called Ner. Anyway, so Ner olidet Kish, and then Kish olidet Shaul, right? And then in Divrei Hayamim Chronicles it says, "Shaul olid et Yonatan ve'et Malkishua ve'et Avner ve'et Avinadav ve'et Eshbaal." 4. Okay, so here we have three kids. Over there we have 4 kids. What's going on? And not only that, we have Yonatan and Malkishua. Those are names that are equal in both places. Yishvi, which we have in the book of Shmuel, doesn't appear over there, and instead there are 2 others. One of them called Avinadav, one of them called Eshbaal. Later on in Shmuel, Avinadav is being presented. He was one of the strongest kids that Shaul had, and he died in a war. Okay, so we found Avinadav. Why is it not mentioned here? Maybe he is. We'll see. Now, so there is one opinion that Yishvi is Avinadav. Yishvi is another name for Avinadav. Again, as we said, there are names and nicknames, so it's one of the same. And he mentioned Yonatan, Avinadav, and Malkishua because those 3 kids, those 3 sons, were helping Shaul to manage the kingdom. They were fighting with him in the wars, all of them. Yonatan and Malkishua died with him, I think, in the war that he died with Saul, and Avinadav died earlier. The 4th son, his name was Ishboshet. The 4th son became the successor to Saul. he became an actual king for a couple of years after Saul passed away, was killed. So he's not mentioning him here because he was not involved in the wars. He was more of the staying behind guy, and since we're talking about the wars, he didn't mention him. Now, so that's one opinion. Another opinion that Avinadav is not counted and Ishboshet is counted, but let that sit for now. And then he mentions two girls, two daughters, Shem Shtei Bnotav, and the name of his two daughters, Shem HaBchira Meirav, Veshem HaKtana Michal. So the oldest one was Meirav, the little one was Michal. Michal turned out to be the wife of David Amalek later on, and she is the one that was giving him a little bit of legitimacy for being a king because she came from royalty. On the other hand, she had a little bit of soul in her, so when she saw David dancing, bringing the ark up to Yerushalayim from where it was, she was laughing at him. What kind of a king is dancing like that and making a fool of yourself? So she had that, that part of the character, the DNA of Saul. We will learn about her a little later. Veshem Eshet Shaul. Now we turning to his wife. Achinoam bat Achi Maatz. Veshem Sar Tzva'o Aviner Bener dot Shaul. Oh, and this is where. So his wife, her name was Achinoam, and his general is chief of staff. Not chief of staff. The head of the Joint Chiefs. He was the head of the army, right? His name was Aviner ben Ner. So Aviner, later on, we see that his name is Avner, right? Avner ben Ner, Aviner ben Ner. It's basically the same. Now, it says here that Ner was the uncle of Saul, meaning it was the brother of Kish. Before we said that Ner was the father of Kish. That's how we know that Ner was the father of Kish, and then he called his son Ner. So I think what happened is that the father of Kish was born as Aviel, and then he came with this invention of the candle, so everybody started calling him Ner. And he was so excited about Ner, about the candle, that he called the son Candle. So it's Candle, the son of Candle, and their grandson is Aviner. A lot of candles in the family. We will see how Avner is being loyal to Saul all the way to the end, and then turn his loyalty to David, and then get killed by David's general, and then Yoav. And then David was very, very upset about it. So Avner ben Ner is also a very central figure here in this book coming up.
The word itself, Aviner, is the father of Ner.
Exactly, which means that they had a grandson also, possibly Ner. That Avner was the father of Ner, possibly. So it's Ner ben Ner. So it's Ner ben Aviner ben Ner ben Ner, whatever. There are other names, right? V'kish avi Shaul v'ner avi Avner ben Aviel. And here is mentioning straight that Kish and Ner were, Kish was the father of Shaul, and Ner was the father of Avner, and they were both the sons of Aviel. Okay, we got that lineage and that family tree straight, hopefully. ותהיה מלחמה חזקה על פלישתים כל ימי שאול. Now, Plishtim, they didn't relent. They were the power in the Middle East at the time. They were strong, and they were upset, and they felt that they were taking advantage of the Jewish property and the Jewish people for a long time, from the time of Shimshon HaGibor, and then then stopped a little bit, and then the time of Eli as well, and then stopped a little bit, and then the time of Shmuel, and then it was on and off, and they felt that things are being taken away from them, all the resources, so they didn't relent. so-called all of the days of Shaul, he was busy fighting the Philistines. וראה שאול כל איש גיבור וכל בן חיל ויספר אליו. Saul saw and identified anyone who is able-bodied to be a soldier and someone who understands the war tactics, and he collected him and enlisted him to the army. If you recall, the army that Saul had amassed before for this war that we just finished was 600 people. It started with 3,000. 1,000 were with Jonathan and 2,000 with Saul. Then, when the war started, 2,400 ran away, and he left with 600. And now he's throughout the consolidation period and all of these small battles and small wars, regional wars, he amassed a much greater number of soldiers. We will see later, over 200,000 soldiers, a substantial army. Okay, that's the end of this chapter, and we're going to dive right in to the next chapter because it's extremely interesting, talking about the real mistake that Saul made. Saul was told to fight the Amalekites and destroy them and eradicate them totally, which we'll talk about why and how. And he did not do it fully, and he had all kind of excuses. And everything that's written here is to demonstrate how wrong he was from the very first word here. And it's painful, but we'll go through it. Vayomer Shmuel el Shaul. So Shmuel, after disappearing for that war, for the first war that we mentioned, the war of the Philistines, right? So Shmuel went home. I don't want to say in a huff, but he was upset that in the Gilgal, Saul didn't listen to him, so he disconnected. He went away. You're the king now. Deal with it. Now he shows up again, and comes to Saul and says, "Oti shalach Hashem lemoshchecha lemelech." Me, I was sent by God to anoint you to a king, al amo al Israel, and his nation and the people of Israel. Ve'ata shma lekol divrei Hashem. And now you should listen to the voice of God, or the words of God. So what is this? What did he think that Saul had amnesia? That he didn't know that it's strange, right? But, of course, I know. No, we met not long ago, right? What happened here? And we also see that as opposed to all of the other times that Shmuel is talking, that God said so and so, he says, Otishalach, he infuses himself. It looks very personal. That God sent me. Very strange. So the commentaries are explaining that we know that Shmuel died young, at the age of 52. And he died young because he didn't want to see, or God didn't want to show him the demise of Saul. Saul was his, at least publicly, pride and joy. The first king of Israel. He anointed him, he propped him up, and then it was a flop. So he just didn't want to see that going away. He felt that it's wrong for him, it's wrong for people to see him after that happened, because as if he did something wrong by selecting the wrong man, all kinds of reasons that I guess are obvious. And so he sort of prayed to God to just take me, and he became very old very quickly and died at the age of 52 years.
Okay, but actually Saul has been successful up to this point.
Correct. So Shmuel is writing this story in order for future generations, after the fact, in order for us to learn a whole bunch of lessons. And one of the lessons is the following, is what we were just saying, and it's about Amalek mostly, but is the fact that Shmuel was trying to talk to Shaul and say, listen carefully, because my life depends on you. If you fail here, I'm history. So please, God sent me to you, listen, and do exactly as God is telling you to do, because it's personal. It's my life. Now we will see later that Saul, after the war, he thought that he did the right thing, which he didn't, but he thought he did the right thing, and he came and told Shmuel, "Don't worry, Mr. Shmuel, you're going to live. I did the right thing. Everything is cool, Hey, okay, which it wasn't. But again, we see the personal discussion. He's looping back to tell him, don't worry, you're going to live. Okay, so this is one introduction, and then this is the Haftarah of Parashat Zachor. Correct. This from this moment, this before Purim. This is the Haftarah of Parashat Zachor, the story of Parashat Zachor. Ko amar Hashem tzvakot, pakati et asher asa Amalek l'Yisrael. So God says now it's time and recount and retaliate. Remember what Amalek, the Amalekites, did to the Jews. Asher sam lo baderech ba'alato mitzrayim, that he did to them on the way when they came out of Egypt, and now is the time to get rid of them, to pay back. For this, I wanted to stop for a second and sort of remember what happened with the Amalekites. It's very fundamental to the story here. So, Parashat Zachor, in Parashat Kitetse, right, it mentions, and also before, it says, Zachor et asher, and Beshalach, Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek, baderech b'tzetchem mitzrayim. You should remember what Amalek did to you when you came out of Egypt. Asher karcha baderech, he bumped into you on the road. Vayzanev b'cha kol hanechshalim acharecha, and he would fight and kill or try to hurt the ones that were the stragglers, right? The stragglers being behind you. Ve'ata ayef ve'yagea, and you are very tired. Ve'lo yareh Elokim, and not God-fearing. Now, who is it? Who is the not God-fearing here? We will see in a second. The Malbim is stating 5 reasons why nations go to war. Those 5 reasons still applicable today. Reason number 1, territory. One nation wants the territory with the resources or whatever of another nation. They fight them. That's most of the historical wars that we all know and learned in history and love to hear about again. So when that reason does not apply to the Amalekites fighting the Jewish people, because it says, Baderech, we were not in a territory. We were on a highway in the desert. We were just walking around. We didn't own what it was public domain. And the Amalekites came and fought against us. So that was not a good reason for them to fight against us. Reason number 1 is down. The second reason nations go to war is because of threat. In the 6-day war, we were afraid that the Arab nations are going to attack first and going to hurt us, so we attacked before. It's the Pearl Harbor is because the Japanese, attacked before. They were afraid of, I don't know if that was the reason, but when you feel threatened by a nation, you attack first. Now, that reason, what is an example of being threatened and why? One of the examples is what happened with Yoshiao and what happened with Sichon. When we came up the band from the desert up, going up along the Jordan River, we were asking nations, Sichon and Malchem and Balak, we were asking them to go through their territory, just to pass through. That's a threat, and they didn't want to do it. Balak called Bilam because we were parked right in front of him. He was scared, so he tried to fight against us. Yoshiao, which was one of the last kings of David, was asked by the king of Egypt to allow them to go pass through the land of Israel to go fight the Assyrians. He said, no way. And so, because it's a threat. But here, we came out of Egypt. Betzetchem, as soon as we exited Egypt, the Amalekites came to greet us and to fight against us. That was about 100 miles away from where they were, from the edge of their territory. 100 or 60 or 70, whatever. It's a bunch of miles away from their territory. How could they possibly have felt threatened by a nation of slaves who came out, wounded after 210 years in slavery? And they came, the Medrash says that they rode a long, long, long way in order to fight against us. So that reason was not legitimate. It's reason number 2. Reason number 3 is when you have a disagreement, or you have a fight, or you have a hatred with another nation. Take the British and the French. They love each other forever, I can see a war again coming like many others in the past. The Sunnis and the Shiites. They're killing each other for 1400 years. Still to this very day, It's nations have history, and many times that history takes over. But that also did not apply to the Amalekites, because the Amalekites says, Asher karcha, they bumped into us. It's not that we had a whole long list of, historical claims and cycles, etc. They just bumped into us on the way out, and it just happened now. So that reason, number 3, is also not a good reason. 4th reason why nations go to war is deterrence. Okay? You have an enemy, and you try to deter that enemy. So what's being done? Sometimes you attack a smaller enemy and take over a smaller enemy just to show, like, maybe what Russia did with the Crimea. They won it back. So they attack a very small... imagine that the United States wants to show who's boss, So they attack a nation, and then all the nations around get scared. But what if that nation that we're talking is Liechtenstein? Liechtenstein they have an army band. They don't have an army, So if the mighty America is going to fight and win the war against Switzerland, Liechtenstein,
the movie.
Yeah, it's who is going to be fearful of that? No one, right? That's not a deterrent. But this is exactly what the Philistines did. They went after the stragglers.
The
Amalekites. The Amalekites went after the stragglers. Anechshalim acharecha. They couldn't have gotten a lot of press for hurting a couple of limping dudes in the back of the camp. It didn't make sense. So that reason is off. The 5th and last reason of why people go to war is religious disagreements. Is religion. You have the religion of love, and you better love, or we're going to kill you. That's how the Crusades, the Islam. This is what we see today. The war of the Muslims against the West is a war of religion. They're being told how to do the war and how to conduct the war, and it's only a war of religion. I mean, nobody, why would they shoot people in Germany? That happens to be a German guy, but why would they shoot Western targets in Paris when they all came from Algeria and from Yemen and from Syria and from other places, as described by our president? As I'm not going to say, but
even the Shiites versus the Sunnis.
Even the Shiite, right? So all of the wars nowadays, most of the wars nowadays, are not territorial, are religious wars. Velo yareh Elokim. The Amalekites were not God-fearing. They didn't have a God. They were atheists. They didn't have a religion agenda. So they couldn't have been that they came to fight against us because of religious differences. They didn't have religion. Lo yara Elokim. So we basically took away all of the reasons for them to fight us. Why did they fight us? They fought us because they heard that God made the plagues and the splitting of the sea, and there was, God made a lot of miracles, and they had a war against God. They're atheists. They don't say, they have a better God. We don't have a God, but your God is not going to. We're gonna show you, what this story and nonsense with God of yours. And they had a war against God, and they are the root of all of those theology or ideas or theories or throughout the years of people who went against God just for the sake of going against God, not because they think that they have some better solution, better option. And this is why we said Milchama LaHashem, Midor Dor, that the war is against God. God has a personal, bone to pick with the, personal fight with the Amalekites, and he's going. They started. He's going to finish them, and that is the reason that we were recommended to go and smite Amalek completely and totally, because they had a war against God. Now let's see in the next pasuk who is supposed to be killed. Ata lech. So Shmuel is telling Saul, you go, meaning it's up to you. Don't tell me later, as he would, that it's the nation, that I didn't have control over them, and they decided to not to fulfill all of the conditions. No, this is you, the king. You have to go. V'ikita et Amalek, and you should smite the Amalekites. V'echamtem et kol asher lo, and you should take and destroy everything that they have. V'lo tachmol, and you should not have compassion, and soon we'll zoom in on this word compassion, tachmol. V'lo tachmol, we should not have any compassion for him. Ve'emat, and you should kill, and he counted all of the forces that possible to be killed. Mi'ish ad isha, from men to women. Me'olel ad yonek, from a kid to an infant. Mishor atzeh, a strong animal to a weak animal. Migamal ad chamor, to a strong and expensive non-kosher animal, to a less expensive non-kosher animal. So everybody from top to bottom, basically you should kill. Now, let's look for a few minutes on the milat tachmol. There are 3 words in Hebrew to describe compassion. One of them is rachamim, lerachem, right? Another one is lachus, chas, lachus al mamono. And another one is lachmol. Now, in Hebrew, they are very, they mean different things. I mean, in modern Hebrew, they don't really, but in reality, in the Bible Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, it means all different things. Now, the Malbim was a linguist, and he helped us decipher what it is. So, rachamim is only between men and men. You can have compassion to another human being. It's your own kind. Lachus means anything. Can be inanimate objects, animals, anything. Not necessarily meant to men. But lachus is when it's more emotional. I have compassion in my heart, lachus, because I feel that I might need it. I might have use for this. I mean, why should I just crash a car just like that because it belongs to someone else? Why should I destroy burn it, throw away a table that I don't need anymore. Maybe I will need it, so I have compassion for him. So it can be for inanimate objects, it can be for animals and humans as well. So that is chas. Lachmol is even lower than that. Is when I don't have any use for it. Never will. It's more of a logical way of logical compassion. It doesn't make sense to just burn a table or to just kill a dog. It just doesn't make sense. It's not going to help me in any way, shape, or form. But it just, why should I? You know, it's a living, it's a functional thing. Why? That's lachmol. Now, there is no emotion involved here, right? It's very, very clear and cold consideration. And this is the word that's being used here. You should not have even a cold, logical compassion. Because if somebody is telling you, don't feel that you need it, that don't have emotion towards it, that's not legitimate. Because, I can't really control my emotions that well. Nobody can. And I may feel that I need something. So if I need something, I'm not, I can be commanded not to feel it. But not to have a cold calculation, that I can command it to do, because it's easy. It's God told me to do so and so, and I need to do it. I shouldn't come up with my logic why I shouldn't be doing it. So that's why we're using it here. And we will see in a second, probably next week, but we will see how come, what was the problem here. So let's just maybe have one more verse. Vayishma Shaul et ha'am. So Shaul made everybody listen to him, meaning he does have full control over them. Vayifkedem batlaim, and he counted them batlaim. Tlaim can be two explanations. One of them is a place called tlaim. Another explanation is that he counted them with his own sheep, with their own lamb. He had flock of lamb, and he says instead of counting the people, which is not a good Jewish practice because it causes it's causing the people you're counting to be not blessed or damaged by it, because it's as if you are the census that you're taking. It's as if you're exerting control over those people. So the way we count, even for minyan, is we use a pasuk or we use something else. So how did he count? He says here, each one of you take a lamb and move the lamb from this cage to that cage, and then they count the cage, the lambs. So, and they counted 200, 200,000 רגלי ו10,000 את איש יהודה. 210 people were counted using lamb. What does it also tell us? It tells us that he was wealthy. He had at least 210,000, sheep. That's a lot of that. He couldn't use later on the reasoning of, I needed, they had a lot of money, the Amalekites, they had a lot of cattle, and we don't have that much, and that's why we kept some of the cattle to ourselves. He couldn't use this excuse. So again, every word that we say here is sort of to show how wrong he was. I think we'll finish here and we'll continue next time. Next time is going to be at 7:15.